Hey guys, wanted to hop on really quick and record a video about route building. So I just wanted to kind of track through the process of how we went from zero, right, not offering pickup and delivery, to fast forward to today, 9 different routes, 3 drivers going out at the same time, 7-day pickup and delivery, etc. Right. So I just wanted to kind of walk through kind of like the baby steps of how we built that, right? And so what I'll say is early on, I made the decision I wanted to offer smaller windows for the customer, kind of understanding our customer in our area. I would like to get to a point to where, our drivers are essentially mirroring like the DoorDash and Uber to where, you can get a stop almost at any point, right? We're not there right now, right? But I think our customer kind of expects that experience. Of course, your mileage may vary with your customers, but just wanted to kind of lay that as groundwork. So, like, my goal is to get toward the smallest window that I can for the specific customer and still be efficient. And so, what I did was I just created one big route, right? So we would say we would do something like that because I didn't know where the volume was coming from, right? I didn't know whether it was, over here in Meadowthorpe or down here in Chevy Chase. I didn't know, right? And so I needed to get some data in order to make that decision of how to actually efficiently build my routes, right? So one big window, we offer pickup and delivery between 8 and noon every day in this big, huge window. And I put a max amount of stops of 10 just to kind of be conservative. I knew I can cover this whole area, picking up 10 stops within 4 hours, right? And so then what do? We sat back and observed, right? And so after about 2 or 3 months, I saw that, our volume was kind of concentrated in these two areas, right? And it was like, okay, all right. Also, at the same time, I saw that, oh, hey, 10 stops. Oh, that's no big deal. Actually, I can do about 12 stops based on, again, the data that I had and running routes and all that, right? And so what that told me, right, for that eight, what we started with was 10 stops per hour. I'm sorry, 10 stops total for 4 hours. That gave me a total of what is it? 2 stops per hour, right? Actually, 2.5 stops per hour, 2.5 stops per hour, right? Then when we bumped it from 10 to 12, right? That from 10 max stops to 12 max stops, that bumped us up to about 3 stops per hour, right? So, getting more efficient here, by allowing me to pick up more stops along the way, right? Now, back to my map here and seeing my volume, seeing that the volume is kind of concentrated in these two areas. Next thing we wanted to do was I actually split the routes in half, right? I split it in half based on knowing that we have everything kind of concentrated in these two areas. So I created this route up here, which I then covered between 8 and 10, right? And then we created this route down here, which I then covered from 10 to 12. Oops, 10 to 12. And then since I'm covering a smaller area in the two of these, right? This is getting a little bit messy, but you still get the point. Since I'm covering a smaller area here, instead of, half of 12, which is 6 stops, we bump that up to maybe 7 or 8 stops, right? 8 stops per in this time frame, right? And so now I got 16 total stops instead of the 12 that I'm covering in that same 4 hours, right? So now I'm at a point of about 4 stops per hour maximum. Okay. So then the next thing for us to do is to, again, monitor, right? Monitor, right? We found that, we were still getting, as our customer base were growing, our vans were going around. Of course, we were still getting, concentration of stops within that same area, right? In those same areas. But then these other outline areas start to kind of fill in a little bit more as well, right? So then what did we do? We went back and looked at splitting our routes again, right? So then now we have, you know, four different routes, right? And what we would do is we would cover this one from eight to, or I would cover this one from 8 to 9, this one from 9 to 10, this one from 10 to 11, and this one from 11 to 12, right? My same 4 hours. I would still spend that 4 hours making those deliveries, right? But I'm improving the customer experience, right? So these folks down here, instead of having a 4 hour window that they have to sit around, right, to wait for their pickup or delivery, now we're down to 1 hour, right? We got 1 hour in for these guys. Everybody's got a 1 hour window, right? And then again, similar to before, where now that I'm covering a smaller area, I can hit more stops, right? And so instead of the half of 8 or 4, maybe I'm doing 5, right? I'm doing 5 stops in each of these hours, right? So I got 5 maximum stops in each of those hours, right? Which again, right, 1 hour, 5 stops, 20 total stops at this point, right? Now we're at 5, right? And so again, I'm improving the customer experience by offering them smaller windows, and I'm increasing our efficiency, right? I went from 2.5 stops per hour when I had the huge window to 5 stops per hour now, right? And so now, yeah, we're kind of humming along. Everything is coming in. Everything's filling in very nicely. I'm only, I'm covering each of these guys for 1 hour per stop, right? Then what we did was I actually hired a driver, right? I hired our first driver, right? And so what we did there was splitting things is kind of our thing, right? And so what we did was I would have, him go west and I would go east, right? So I would cover these two windows, which then at that point what we did was we would then split we would then actually we didn't split the actual physical route, but we offered more times for each of the windows, right? And so what we would do is he would be in this area from 8 to 9 as a 1 hour window, right? And also 9 to 10, right? And so he would be in this area from 8 to 10, but the customer has the opportunity to schedule a 1 hour window, right? Then he would move on to this area where he would cover 10 to 11 and 11 to 12, right? And then I would do the same thing on this side, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, in this area, and then, oops, I'm sorry, and then 10 to 11 and 11 to 12 in this area. I know this is kind of getting a little bit messy, but you can follow along, hopefully, right? And then we would still keep that 5 stops per hour, right? So that's 10 in that hour. In those 2 hours, 10 over here. Basically, we essentially doubled the amount of stops that we can do by hiring a driver and still uh, working the same hours from 8 to noon, right? Later, we added on evening route between 5 and 7, but it was kind of in this same vein of sit back, see what data we get, see where our stops are filling in, analyzing it, and then splitting the routes strategically accordingly, right? And again, my goal was to get it to where the customer has the smallest window, which will probably stick to about an hour window. I think that's pretty much safe, and for us to be as efficient as we can. Right. And one thing that I'll say is that, by being very mindful and strategic about this, we've achieved a 99+% on time rate for all of our routes at this point, right? We're you know, increasing the customer experience, also our efficiency, and we're doing it and we're hitting our goals, right? Fast forward to today, like I said, we have about 9 routes that we cover now. Two of those routes are actually DoorDash, right? We didn't have DoorDash when we started out back in 2018. So the way that we utilize DoorDash today is they do our exploring for us, right? Let's say these two routes out here, I don't know if we have volume out here, right? So I'm going to create DoorDash only for these areas right here, and monitor and see if we can get volume out in those areas, right? Without us kind of spending our time and energy going out there, we can get the data in and see how it fills in before we invest in, new vans, new drivers accordingly. So that's about it. That is how we strategically kind of built out our routes over time. This was a learning process. And like I said, the first step is just kind of, getting out there and gathering some data and taking it from there. Hope this was helpful. See you guys soon.